Thank you, Emily. And everyone, you can see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. This is Donna Craig again. I hope you enjoyed your week off. We're going to go ahead and get back into version 12. And I'm sure you all know now it's actually been officially released. So if you haven't gone on to the partner portal, go on there, the Partner Center, go on there now. You can actually download the current copy of the software, version 12.0.3, I believe it is, with also all the new supporting documentation. They have put out some new product release guides and some new product notes. Plus, there's also a special guide that just talks about License Manager and how that's all changed. And also another one that I saw that was for the report, the new report viewer as well. So definitely you want to go onto the Partner Center and grab all of the documentation that's available. So to recap, because I know we had a week off, where we're at in this, we are in week 5 of this series. We've gone through all the front of the house functionalities, your basic ordering operate modes, and how to do some of that. And we've just gotten ourselves back into the back office area. We did go through some of the basic overviews of the back office, and when we left off, we had gotten as far as administrator and going through system and station. And those are the two that really have a lot of functionality to them. That is where you start to set up everything. So I just want to do a recap since it's been a week. I just want to do a recap, not of all the individual functions, but just some of the highlights. So again, going into system setups, you can see again we have a variety of tabs, and this is again the start. Now, I've also talked about how these settings are global, meaning that it affects the entire system. But as you'll see as we keep going, that you can have global settings, but there are many places where you can set up things that are very specific. You can set them up specifically towards different revenue centers or by station or by item even. As we keep moving forward, you're going to see some of that repetition. So again, this main system tab, you turn on three actually of the main interfaces. This is where you would turn on and tell the system you want to use the inventory manager, the reservations piece, also the authorization manager for credit cards. If you are going to do integrated credit cards, so you're running the credit cards through the POS system, you do need to tell us here that you are in fact using it, and again, what mode are you using it in. So again, not using is, again, you're not using it. They're either not taking credit cards or they're using a separate Verifone machine, if you will. Server mode versus station mode. Which unit are you going to load the third-party credit card processing software? Again, Pixel is a pass-through. You swipe the card, we'll take the information, and then we'll send it off to one of the numerous merchants or credit card interfaces that we work with. So in the States, we use a lot with Minetra is one of the main ones that we use. I know Mercury is another one that's out there. So that software, are you loading it on the system that you've designated to the POS server, or did you load that credit card software on one of the stations if it's a multi-station system? Okay. Also, what you can do in here, the starting points, if you will, is set up for auto end of day. So if you have stores out there that don't want to go through the end of day, they shut their restaurant down, they don't want to have to balance the monies out or actually physically tell the system we are shutting down, this is the starting point where you would turn that functionality on. And again, there are other areas then you set up. What do you want turned on? So for instance, auto end of day, you can set it up that it will auto batch credit cards, again, integrated credit cards. You can also set up that the end of night reports will auto print as well. So there are some other things that you can do within auto end of day. We'll talk about them when we talk about policies. Another one, and I'll point this out because I just learned something new right before I left for vacation. Open 24 hours. So again, stores that never close. So you've got casinos, you have restaurants and casinos. They might be open 24 hours. We would tell the system in conjunction with the time that if I want to do that as an auto, so we're open 24 hours. If you just click 24-hour mode, you're still leaving it as a manual switchover by whoever is running the show. So there's no consistency there. Maybe it's 2 o'clock in the morning they decide they're switching over from Monday to Tuesday. And some days they try to hit at 2 a.m., but sometimes they don't make it until 2:30 or whatever the case is. That, in conjunction with auto end of day, will make it always be consistent. So you would hit auto end of day and put in the time that you no matter what's going on, you want the system to cut over from Tuesday to Wednesday or Wednesday to Thursday, whatever the case may be. It's seamless to the front. One thing I did just learn is that if you do use those two in conjunction, it will not auto-batch credit cards, and it will not have the auto end-of-day reports print. So that would still be two activities that have to be done manually. The difference, again, if I'm just using an auto end-of-day, you can set those both up to happen automatically. But if you're trying to do it within 24-hour operation, that doesn't work. Okay? So that's the main piece there. Taxes, we've talked about taxes. And you know, this isn't just taxes. I mean, we've combined a few other little things in here. So again, you set up your different sales tax types. So in the states, this is very common where you could have a state tax, a local, federal tax. You have the local tax, you have federal tax. You could have a county tax. Some places downtown, like if you look at your hotel bill, they have a specific area tax. So you get charged a higher tax, say, if you're closer to like a lakefront, which is considered a popular area, versus maybe out in the sticks, maybe don't have that. You also see here where you have some manipulations about gratuity. Would the gratuity apply to the tax? Yes or no? Apply gratuity. Would I be taxing the gratuity? In some counties, states, cities, it's all up there, they require taxes on those gratuities. GL codes, are you going to be downloading this into a general ledger software and keeping track of all that, what GL codes would apply to each of these? The other thing you can do in this area is what we call least common unit. This is where your cities, states, countries that they don't take pennies. They round up to the nearest, if you will, nickel. So I know this is something that just happened in parts of Canada, and I know it's something that they have out there in, say, Australia. We want to round up to the nearest 5 cents. So to set that up, the nearest 5 cents, charge is going to be set as a 1, and we're going to say 3. So what the system is going to do is it's going to look for the nearest nickel within 3. So if the total comes up at 52 cents, it's going to round it down to 50. If the total comes up at 53 cents, it's going to round it up to 55. Okay? The other thing that you would do in here is you would check mark if this is going to be a VAT tax environment. Now this just turns that on. The other part with taxes, there's a couple other things that you have to remember when you are setting up taxes, is there are DLLs, dynamic library link files. Thank you. I lost my mind there. That we've written to accommodate some of the other special tax situations out there. So we have one for Ontario, Florida has a special one, California has a special one. It allows us to have a little bit more functionality and flexibility with some of the very, very stringent tax rules or dynamic tax rules that are out there in our selling environment. If you don't have a DLL that is created for your area, because maybe there's some new law that just went in, because they're always changing tax laws everywhere. That was something that you can contact Pixel with, and we talk about writing a special one for wherever your area is. That's how we've ended up having special ones, say, for Florida and Ontario. So there's that with taxes. Also, the other place in taxes you have to deal with is our Pixel 32 INI file. That is a configuration file, and we'll be talking about that a lot more as we go along. It allows for more configurations. Pardon me a second. Sorry. It allows the Pixel 32 INI file. Some of you are used to having to edit that manually. That works in tangent with the policies, and it also gives us more flexibility and more configuration options for the system. And once we get into that, we'll go over that a little bit more as well. All right, so that was it for taxes. And I'm not going to save any changes I did in there. But I didn't mean to exit out all the way. Company info. This is just text fields. And the two areas that this affects are going to be reports. So you have all your store-specific information, your company information. It'll show up in the headers on the reports, including this is where you can change the logo for your reports. And that's going to be on all the reports. And we're talking about the 80-column reports in the back. We're not talking about the receipt reports. The other place this becomes important is if you are going to be in a delivery environment and you're going to use a mapping application, it's going to look here for the starting address of the restaurant. So that's the only other time that this becomes very important for setup reasons. POS reports, what are the automatic reports that we're going to show at the end of the night if you turn on auto reports, and what you want them to look like. So by default, these are the ones that are set up on the system. So we have the employee cash out report. That's the standard one that we're all used to seeing. And the end of day reports. Those are the ones that, again, if you go into your manager station, you can choose to print at any given time, or it'll happen when you do the end of day. One of the things that we can do, though, there is a number of other reports out there. So if you want to change up the format, or you create a new one, and also, by the way, these are all done in Crystal. I think the latest version that we allow is version 11. So you can write your own reports in Crystal if you are, if that's something that you understand how to do. Once you have the report, either clicking in either of the folders or add reports, say over here in the end of day batch reports, let me go to that one first. It's going to take you to, it should default to Pixel reports. These are all of the reports that are in Pixel reports right now. Now, what you do want to look for, though, is we're looking for reports that say SQL POS. Those are the ones that are 40-column reports. That's how you can identify the ones that are set up as a 40-column report as opposed to the reports that are 80 columns. You obviously cannot set up an 80-column report to auto-print through here because these reports specifically go to the report printer, go to the receipt printers. Okay? So back in the day, this used to have a filter. So it would only list the SQL POS reports, but somewhere along that line, that filter got broken, I guess. So now that's why it's showing me every single report that's out there. But as long as you have an SQL POS, these are all the reports that you have an option for that you could actually have print out. So you can see there's a clockout report, there's open drawer reports, the cash out summary report. That's the one that we're pointing through there. If there's a different version of that that you wanted or you've created, and this is obviously where you would drop that file in once it's been created and you would link it to it. This is a new one. We have the employee cash out report, or clockout report, excuse me. That's the new functionality that came in with version 12, and there's a new report in here. They've made some changes to the report. Clockout report. Okay, and that's something that you can have also print out when the employee does a cash out, and when they clock out. So you can change these up. These report views here, these are the reports that you're seeing when you go into manager screens and day sales. Those are the ones that you can pull up online. And again, if you write something special in Crystal, you can have a different version for them. Okay, I'm not going to say cancel changes, and yes. Preset payments, I think this is pretty self-explanatory. This is looking for in your finish screen. What are the presets so that they can hit a button? So in the States, we would think in terms of cash, but this is currency. So whatever your equivalent to your flat dollar bill would be. So we have 100s, 50s, 20s, 10s, and 5s. The other functionality here is auto-apply preset payments. So as soon as I hit the $100, if I have that check, it assumes it's cash. If I was in Europe, as long as you set up your first payment type as euros, it's going to assume that it's a euro. So instead of them having to hit 100 and then hit your cash button or your euro button, the system is going to automatically assume that. If you take multiple different versions, so if you're close to, say, the U.S. border, and you 50% you have cash that comes in, you also have Canadian monies that come through. You may not want to have the auto set so that you can choose which it is that you're receiving. Allow paid and paid outs we talked about. Tender balancing, this is a big one. This is the trigger for if they're going to do tender balancing. So that's forcing that cash out to pop up when you're ready to close down. Does it happen on each cash out? So does it happen when we're closing the bar drawer or in a server banking environment when my server cashes out? Or do I not want to do individual cash outs? I don't want to balance per person or per cash drawer. I'm just going to do it at the end of the day as a whole. So I've got all the money that was given to me, and now I'm going to balance all of it as opposed to doing individual. Orders, this was 3 areas through here. First of all, how you set up all your future orders, how you set up your gratuities, and how you do coursing. We've also added, this came with version 12, is where you also can touch this member point system, apply point by product or by amount. When you're redeeming a member loyalty wants to redeem, Are they going to do it by products, so points I earn per product, or are we going to base it based off of check amount? So that's one of the new functionality options that you have. Defaults, we talked about that. This is just, and this kind of goes back to old Pixel with some of the upgrades that we're having problems with. There were certain commands that the system was losing its mind on, so we put them in here. You really don't have to do this anymore, but this is going to do a default. So for default split comment, what is the default message? And again, you can choose it if you want it to be something different. These are some ideas of some of the different messages that we have set up in the system. Seating, default seating positions. What is the default seating position? I could just leave it as the default seat button, which is what I have it set to. So when they hit seat, they have to tell me what number it is. Or you could have it be default as always seat 1. So that's something that you could also change as well. And this is one of the new features with some of the plugins with coupons. So if you have a situation where you're always giving a discount, you have some specific coupon, and I see this in country clubs. This is a good place for this, where they always get a 5%. If it's a member, they always get a 5% discount or whatever the case is. You can create that coupon, attach it as a default, and as soon as we go to the finish screen, it's going to apply that discount to the ticket without the server having to actually do anything to make that happen. Okay? Collaboration, again, this is why when I open up my back office, it's going to the google.com page. If you're working with a company that has an intranet, you may want to put in the address for their intranet so that they are always connecting to their local, their company intranets. Like we have Partech. I could put the Partech website there and I would connect automatically to that. Email setup, the various areas in our system where you have the functionality to send emails. So again, we can send emails, employee schedules, web-to-go, and web-to-go confirmation kind of works hand in hand. And the new one that we have is report viewer, plus also with alert manager. So this is where you need to put in all of the settings for their email server. The port, traditionally it's usually 211, but if it's different on their server, by all means you put in what their port number is. Is it SSL certified, yes or no? And then their username and password. So the system actually lets us in. And then all the emails are going to be sent from. What email address are they going to be sent as? And then you can also have their name. So instead of just having the email address, you could maybe have admin guy, IT guy, manager, whatever the case is. You can also do a test email to make sure that the settings are working. Here again, you have your check marks to tell the system which one of these functionalities are you turning on. Because not everybody's going to have everything. Maybe they don't do scheduling through the system, so you're not going to worry about sending an email, the employee schedule. But if they are going to do web-to-go, you're going to want web-to-go and you're going to want the confirmation check marks. The web-to-go is going to be more generic, so customer signs up, they forget their password, they can click the little button that's going to say, I forgot my password, please send. And that's going to generate that reset email for password. Confirmation agent you're going to need because that's going to be the email that is sent when it confirms the order. So once the order has been placed and payment has been received. Now again, maybe they're not paying on the website. Maybe they do have the option to pay at store or pay the driver. But once they do that, whatever their payment option is, it's going to send a confirmation email letting us know that we have that order and letting the customer know that we the report viewer, are we going to email them reports or files? We can also do files. So and again, this is where you would enable all that. For the email or the employee schedule and the confirmation agent, this is basically what the body of the email, the default body of the email is going to look like. So it's going to go through our various report records, and it's looking for these fields that are in greater and lesser than signs, and that's what it's going to fill in. And again, you can edit this if you don't want to say your employee schedule, and you can have it say whatever you want it to say as anything that is not in the greater than or lesser sign is going to be fixed. So it's not like you're going to be able to change just to say, Donna, here's your schedule. And again, set as default is what I see here, but again, if you change it and you want to go back to the defaults, you can again hit set default. Okay? Advanced, again, new plugin features. Look at the version 12 documentation. This is an area that got, again, it was buffed up to allow for more options, not just couponing as an auto. And notice, again, it's on finish, but some other things that we can do on finishing of an order. All right, so there's all of that. Station setup, this is where we're getting more specific. So for each individual station, you can customize all of this. So again, station 1, if you'll notice, menus that it's going to use. So my default menu, I've got various menus. So when you're building menus, and we'll get into this, you build the menu, and then you link a template, an order template to the menu. Okay? So, and here it's showing me what that order template is. Now, alternate order template. So here's an example. You've got older systems out there that've got old systems, and maybe they've expanded, so now they're buying new equipment, and we can't get. So again, I'm going to go with power equipment. So Vigos. Vigos are end of life. So we've got an old store that's got 2 Vigos, and they've done so well they want to add another terminal. Well, I can't get them another Vigo. I'm going to sell them our latest equipment, which is an Everserve 7000. The screen size might be different. So here's where I can choose a different template for this particular station. So maybe my station 1 is my new station, and I wanted to look at, you know, order screen 1024, or maybe this is my old station and I needed to look at the 80 by 800 by 600. So they're still going to look at the right menu, but we've got a template, an individual template built for each of the different screen sizes. So when you're building your templates, it's not just about different functionalities. So my bar screens being different than my dining room screens, or my to-go screens, or my delivery screens. It's also about your actual physical screen size as well. Okay, so that's where you would change that up. Other than that, again, all the different templates, the finish template, the question template, the theme, floor file. This will make sense. We're going to actually work in table setup today, and I'll show you how you're going to create these. What does their floor look like? So maybe, again, going back to my hotel scenario that I've been using, I've got my floor layout for my fine dining restaurant, but I've also got a floor layout for my sports bar, or a floor layout for my coffee shop. This station is located in my coffee shop. So I would point to the floor template that was for my coffee shop. So again, they see the right tables. That is the main thing. The other big thing here is the default sales type. Again, we can set it up that they can toggle through and get any sales type. If you have a station that's in between 2 areas, and maybe they ring up room service and they ring up dining room on that station, by default, it's going to always go to the dining room, the dine-in station in this case, but I could toggle through and pick, like if I had room service in here, I could pick room service. So this is, again, is just a default sales type. All right? Printer points, telling the system where to print to for this station. All right? So these are really, and we're going to get into this today too, these really represent our printer channels, and there are 9 printer channels. We're going to go through today, and I'm going to show you how you name all these different printer channels, and then how you tell the system for each station what is their actual physical printer that they would go to. So local is always print channel 1, and that is your local check printer. Every POS is going to have a check printer attached to it. You need to be able to print out the customer's receipts for them, and if you are doing integrated credit cards, you need to have a place that you can print out their credit card receipts. You don't want these going into the kitchen or to the bar printer, so you always will have that local printer. And then we start to break down with all the other different types of group printing that we want to do, and we'll get into this a little bit more. Okay, again, and the advanced tabs are, again, so drawers, we can do 3 cash drawers, some cash drawers attached to the printer. Well, what is the printer that you're attached to? So again, even though it doesn't say printer 1, 2, 3, 4, that's what this is referring to. My cash drawer, typically, I'm always going to, if I'm going to go through a printer to connect my cash drawer, it's going to be to my local printer. I'm not going to necessarily attach it to my bar printer, or the printer that I have that receives my bar orders, because that might be set across, you know, the room. And your check printer is going to be sitting right next to where your cash drawer and your register is. But again, you could change these up if you needed to, but by default, they're probably going to be a 1. Receipt printer, when I hit print check or print receipt, where's that going to go? So again, this one is going to number 1, which again, local is number 1. But if I wanted to have it print in 2 different places, I could. Maybe for whatever reason, I want my receipts to double print. I needed to print to 1, and I'm going to also say I wanted to print to my bar. So 1, 2, 3. So now, and I don't have a comma, and this isn't a 13. We don't use commas in this particular area, but you literally would string along each of the individual print channels that you want that receipt to print at. So for stores that need double receipts, and they have thermal printers, they don't want the impact printers and buy the 2-ply paper, this is how you could give them 2 copies of the receipt. Of course, you're going to want to point that second printer to something that's nearby instead of it, of course, being across the restaurant or it being in your kitchen, because I assure you, your chefs are not going to be happy having receipts and checks pop up between orders. Okay, and I'm not gonna save that. Cancel change, and yeah, so that's just an overview of that piece of it. Fonts, again, being able to change the font size on your screen. And what, items that are system fonts versus medium-sized fonts versus large-sized fonts. So maybe you want your table numbers to be larger on the screen than you want, say, the buttons at the bottom of the order tab. So where you see the save, get, check, and all those, maybe you want those a little bit smaller, or they want those a little bit bigger back in front of the house. This is where you can adjust some of that. Advanced, again, some of the different settings, if you will, that we can set up. And again, this would be by station. So one of the things is station pricing. There's 3 different places in our system that you can set up pricing. So this one would be by station. So I can tell the system that this station always looks at our price A. There's 13 prices for every individual item that you put into the system. So maybe this is my room service terminal. So in room service, notoriously, prices are always higher. So instead of having to worry about making sure that the staff is hitting the right price list, you just, and room service is pretty usually a closet somewhere, that station would only ever get used for room service orders. So I can tell it station 1 is always going to use price A or price D or whatever the price group is that I want to use on that particular screen. And that way you know that they're always getting charged the right price for the food items. But you could also go by schedule. We can schedule prices, and I'll show you how you do that. So there, instead of going for a default pricing, you're always telling it to look at the scheduling prices. Member group. So when you create your member groups, maybe I have a group, I have IBM, and anybody who works for IBM goes to my IBM group, and IBM all have a special price. And maybe in my restaurant I have a unit, maybe it's the hostess unit, who knows, that I say this is where all IBM employees get rung, so therefore we know that they're going to get the right prices. Instead of relying on your server to remember amongst all their checks that, oh yeah, that's right, that's an IBM person, I have to make sure I give them the right pricing. Okay? And then there's also the sales type, which would be by your sales types. Is it the dining room versus room service versus to go? So that's another way that you can set it up. So regardless of what unit they're being rung up on, it's going to refer back to the sales type and what the default pricing is you have associated with that sales type. Okay? This is all pretty standard. This is kind of a biggie, quick order. This gives you a little bit of functionality. So we have all the different table numbers out there, but we reserved 3,000 through 3,200 for quick order, what we call quick order table numbers. And really what it's going to allow us to do is sort. So this comes in handy, again, in a delivery system, or I should say delivery systems, and also drive-through. So I have double-lane drive-through at my restaurant. All the McDonald's out by me have now 2 lanes, and some have 2 windows, some have 1 window. So I could either be dealing with 3 registers, so 2 order-taking registers and 1 cashier, or I could have 2 order takers and 2 cashiers. So I need to make sure that my cashiers are hooked up right. The order taker and the cashiers, the tickets go right. So for the 2 registers that are working together, 1 order taker and 1 cashier, I would say have their quick order numbers set up for 30001 on both units. So in case Station 1 and Station 2 are the tandem units, in their quick order reference number for both of their stations, they'd be set to 3001. Stations 3 and Station 4 are my second lane. 3 is, again, my order taker, and 4 is my cashier. I would set both of their reference numbers as 3002. So now this is sorting, so when I am on the cashier unit, I go to pull up Get Check or use my check, my transaction screen, and I'm only seeing the orders that were rung up for me by my cohort on Station 3, which is, say, Lane 2. All right? So that's how you can sort what goes where, so not everybody is seeing everything. consider, again, in this scenario that there's also a bar. So bars are going to be bringing up orders as quick orders. I don't want to see any of those bar tickets on my cashier system. My hotel, let's go back to my hotel scenario. I've got a bar and I've got a coffee shop. The chances are my coffee shop might be doing things as quick order. Who knows? Or I've got 2 bars. I don't want the upstairs bar getting the downstairs bar's checks. So again, it's going to allow you to siphon out and be very specific at what shows up where. All right. Some of the other little funky things that we can do here. This has to do with manipulating the screen. So play animation on the main unit. So when you're on the logon screen and you're just sitting there with that, basically that screensaver on the logon screen, you can create animated pictures that kind of float around and stuff. Just know that we've discovered that this is a bit of a memory hog. So if you're having any kind of performance issues, you're going to want to take that play animation off. This is also where you can disable some of the buttons on the main order screen, so get, save, check. Some places don't like get, save, check. You've got quick order businesses. McDonald's, again, one of the customers I work with for Baskin-Robbins, they put the order in and they get the money right there and then. There is no saving that ticket. You order it, you pay it at the get-go. So that might be a button you want to disable so they can't save tickets. And it prevents overrings and tickets that are lost. And it's like, why do you have this ticket rung up here for 3 ice cream sundaes? Where's the money for it? I don't know. What's the manager? The only thing they can really do then is void that out. Disable the zoom in and the zoom out buttons for those table. I'm a big proponent of taking that off. When they're hitting that button and everything gets really, 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 really tiny, and you have to keep hitting it until you get back to full size again. I don't have a really good reason for why that is there, quite honestly. I don't particularly like that functionality. Tax inclusive. So another one of our little taxing things. So bar registers. A lot of times in a bar situation, tax is included in the price of the beer, or the drink, I should say. So my bottle of Corona is $5. If I order it in the restaurant, it's going to be $5 plus tax. If I order it at the bar, it's going to be $5 including tax. So on this register, I can tell it that it's tax-inclusive pricing. Notice here what says feature code equals 1. So there's another piece that you have to do with this, and that is with each of the individual products. So all of your bar items, per se, you have to go into another tab on each of those individual items and tell the system that the feature code is 1. So there's multiple layers on some of this stuff. How things are going to function. So again, am I going to start off in a quick transaction mode, or am I going to go to the table layout mode? Some of the other things that you can set up here. One of the big things here is this sales auth. So integrated credit cards. Like I said, anytime you put a credit card in the system, this is going to tell the system whether or not a tip is required. Yes, or do I have to deal with my tip? Yes or no. If I leave this unchecked, or if I check it, excuse me, I'm telling the system that any charges that go through, any credit cards that are run through this system, I don't need tip. So therefore, don't ask me to put in my zeros. But if I have it unchecked, then I'm going to have to deal with it and put in the tip in there in order for me to move past it. So remember, we kind of talked about with credit cards, you always have to tell the system, does it have a tip or it doesn't have a tip? This is one of the flag settings that sets that up. Now this one you're going to see in a lot of places, because here you can set this up by register. So again, in my gift shop at my hotel, they're never going to have tips on credit cards and gift shop when people are going to buy merchandise. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to check that because there is no pre-auth on that. But in my dining room, my fine dining, I'm going to want to have it so that it gives them it forces them to deal with the tip factor at that point. The other place is receipt setup. So there's 2 places of dealing with receipts. We have a general receipt place where the receipt information that you put in is going to be everywhere. If you need to do a custom receipt by station, then this is where you would set up that custom receipt by station. Okay, and this you're going to see in the other area. This really is exactly the other area, but again, this would be, anything I did here would affect just this station. So common times you might do this would be, again, my room service situation. So in the bottom of my room service ticket, I want to put a place for signature, print name, and room number. Maybe I want to also add in a little extra gratuity line in there to give the customers the option to give me a little bit more. Thank you very much. Kiosks. If you set up a kiosk, again, with our kiosking, besides a whole bunch of other stuff you have to do with setting up kiosks, you also, though, can have a custom receipt for a kiosk. That would be something that would be very convenient and is pretty practical. drivers for pickup delivery. Again, you might want to put in an extra tip line on it for the driver so the customer can put in a tip if they so chose to. So just some examples of why you would do that. Now, if you're not going to do custom receipts, if every register you want to have the exact same receipt, don't do it through here because this is a lot of maintenance. If you're going to change the receipt and you do a custom receipt, you got to go to each of your individual stations to make those changes as opposed to just doing a general receipt, which we'll get into maybe today, if not tomorrow, or Thursday, excuse me. All right, so there's a little bit of an overview of all of that. The other little thing, just again to overview everybody, cancel changes yes, is our navigation bars. So again, this is standard throughout the entire program. We look at things as records. So right now I'm looking at my stations. So the flashlight is always going to search everything. So these are all of my individual stations. So I can see everything about them. And if I scroll over, I can see some of the different fields that are populated. And some of this will be, foreign to some of us. The tech guys, they'll probably understand this a little bit more. It talks about ports and stuff like that. Again, this is while I'm dealing with stations. The left side arrow key with the line is going to take me to the very first record. The last one with the line is going to take me to the last. And then the individual buttons are just going to move me backwards and forwards. Okay, so that's standard throughout the entire system. Refresh is just refreshing whatever I did. I just want to make sure that the current things I did stayed. Adding would be inserting new record is adding new. If I hit add right now, I'm adding a new station. So again, we by default in your startup databases, there's 20 of them already in there, so there's really no need to add new. You're just going to go in and edit the ones you had. But if for whatever reason you wanted to, that's add there. But that's also, though, employee is going to be that button, products, and you're adding new menu items, etc. Okay. Also standard throughout the system for the most part is this inactive. Is it checked, yes or no? So you see my station 20 is not checked. So SQL database, nothing ever gets deleted out of a SQL database. All we do is inactivate lines. So by default, we set up everything as is active. If it has a check mark, it's active. If there's no check mark, it's not active. It's in your system, but you're not going to see it. All right, so you can see station 1 is active. And that's going to be consistent throughout the whole program. And then close form is just closing that window. All right, so that's recapping everything that we have done. So let's get into some new stuff. Revenue centers. So in general, for your average, everyday, typical restaurant, you're not even going to change it. This is going to be a default revenue center that encompasses everything. In, say, my hotel environment, we really do break everything out by the different revenue centers because I have a general manager of my fine dining restaurant. I have a completely separate general manager for my coffee shop, and I treat them as separate businesses. Or even if you think of like a strip mall, some people literally own an entire side of the strip mall. So I could have, a Starbucks. I could have a, a burrito place. I could have a hamburger place. I could have a gift shop. And I have them all linked on the same POS network. They're all on the same Pixel system, but I treat them all as individual businesses, if you will. So to add a new revenue center, it's easy as just hitting plus. And I'm just going to say this is my coffee shop. Whoops. If I can type. And plus. The check mark is save. Okay, and that's it. That's all you got to do. By default, every record we do set up in the system, it does come up as active. So just to give you an FYI on that. But that's all there is to it. That's just setting up the different revenue centers. Okay. Back to admin, sales types. So the different sales types. So besides having revenue centers, you also set up the sales type on the reporting. What does this function like? And again, this is also, if you're going to go just a default sales type. So again, I have my generic restaurant, but I have multiple different sales types that I will do throughout the store. So again, I've got a bar, I've got a dining room, maybe I have retail, I have to-go. So again, using my flashlight, the ones that are already set up in the default database, we have catering, delivery, dine-in, drive-through, pickup, and quick service. I could have kiosks in here. Again, room service. It talks about, it's not so much the revenue centers, it's about the different serving styles. Think of it that way. Okay, so here's one of the things I was talking about, setting up the price type. So I can set up for catering, per se, that all my catering orders use price group F. If this was my room service, this is where I could say for my room service department type, maybe again they use price J. So this allows me to, regardless of what station, what physical terminal they ring up the sale on, as long as they pick the correct sales type, the pricing is going to be there. So again, for that member pricing, if I did member pricing, again I was talking about that IBM group that I've got going on, I can set up, I can attach the member pricing to it, and to the, maybe I have a special sales type for just my IBM people, or just anybody that's a loyalty. I have a special sales type for them. All the loyalty it's rung up under a certain sales type. That's another way you could handle that. Okay. Oops. Let's just go back to use the normal scheduling pricing. If you are doing web to go, now again, web to go has been defunct. I know it's still out there, so there are places out there that still use it. But understand that we are going to use the web to go features, the configuration features in here, when we are interfacing with a third-party online ordering system that we are actually currently developing something right now with. So allow sales type on web. So catering, would I allow that on the web? Maybe, maybe not. I might let them do their catering orders online. So this is going to say whether or not they can actually get to that sales type online. You would not more than likely, cancel changes, yes, say allow dine-in on the web. Maybe by delivery, though, I allow on web ordering. Catering, I allow on web ordering. Pickup, maybe I allow that on web ordering, so that way you can enable which ones they can actually get to in the system. Sales auth, again, no pre-auth. In catering, when I run a credit card through, do I want them to have to go through and add that tip, yes or no? Okay. Enforced member. So enforced member means that every time I ring up, I hit the sales type catering, in this example, it's going to force me, the next thing it's going to do is ask me for my member information. It automatically brings up that member screen where I have to assign this order to a member. I can't move forward unless I do. Okay? And in tangent with that, we have this functionality called enforce future ordering. Future ordering is, again, in catering, this makes total sense. I'm coming in on Monday because I have a party on Saturday, and I'm going to give you the order on Monday. So you're going to go ahead and ring up that entire order on Monday. We're going to schedule it for the future so that you can put in everything in the system. You can take a deposit through instead of doing a deposit as a paid in with no connection to it, you could do a partial payment on that ticket right then and there, so that when they actually do come in on Saturday to bunch of settings. If you remember, in future ordering setup, back in system setup, there was the area where you told it all the parameters. So if my order is supposed to pick up at 6 o'clock, how soon before 6 o'clock do I want that order popping up for my server? So it comes up on the register so I could close it out. So do I want an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours prior to pickup time? So you can set up all those parameters in that other screen. And you don't have to have enforced ordering, obviously. That's a check mark there. Auto order item. So room service. A lot of times in room services, besides the auto gratuity that they put in, a lot of hotels put in auto what they call service charge that the house keeps. So to ensure that that always gets rung up, you could hit auto order item, and then you go and select the item that you always want ordered. So you could have in here a security charge button set up that it's always going to ring that item up. Okay, I don't have anything fun like that set up, but just to give you an idea. All right. The other thing is print receipt location. So in a catering situation, maybe I want to change up. I don't want my printing to be by station again. I want to switch it up. So where do I want that receipt to print? Catering situation, maybe because it's catering and you're going to have a very expensive bill, it's a wedding kind of stuff, you're going to get some really nice card stock, and you're going to actually set up an 80-column printer that you want the receipts. So any receipts for, say, catering will actually print to that printer in the back. So this is where you could set that up as an auto default. So it overrides whatever's set up at the store level, at the register level. It will auto print where you want that to go based on the sales type. Delivery mode. So if you remember back when we were looking at, and actually Scott taught this piece of the class, the delivery pickup screen, and you talked about that interface and how that screen looked different and what was the tabs on the left-hand side. By putting in the delivery mode, that determines what those tabs are. So if I have catering set up as delivery, this is going to show up on that pickup screen. If I have it set up as a pickup department, it's going to show up on that screen. If I have it set up as dine-in, it's not going to show up on that screen. So this determines which of your sales types actually show up in your pickup delivery interface screen. Okay. Sales tax. So which sales tax apply? Now, sales tax you can do by category, report category, which we'll get into, which basically is grouping items. So it's any items that have a common parameter. So say, for instance, all your desserts. All your desserts go to the same printer. They have the same tax group. And there's a couple other things involved that we can do. You can set up tax that way. Or you can set up your taxes by department. So great example of this, California. If I order a hamburger to go in certain areas in California in general, it's exempt from tax. If I sit down and eat that exact same hamburger, I have to pay tax on it. Crazy, I know, but that's how it works. So I would go into my delivery or pickup. I'm going to say pickup. And I'm going to unflag all my taxes, as you see I've already done here, because I don't have to pay taxes on that. As opposed to, though, if I order that same burger in the dining room department, dining room sales type, then my tax, in theory, I just undid that. My tax would be set to yes. Okay, so that's how that works. Loading image, this is just the image that the servers and your cashiers are going to see on the front side when they, on the button itself, delivery, dine-in, to go, if the buttons are on the screen, what little picture is going to pop up. And loading the image, you just hit load image, and then you pick, and you want to load all this stuff within PixelPOS. You want to put the image in here. You can put it in the image folder if that's where you want to keep them all, just to kind of keep it clean. And you pick the actual image that you want to show up. Okay? Or clear it because maybe you don't want anything on the button. And cancel changes, yes. All right, so that is your sales types. POS function setup. So this goes back to when we were in manager screen, well, not just manager screens, but all of the, in point of sale, all the different screens that we had out there. So we have manager screens, you have table screens, you have function screens. These are all the different types of screens and all the buttons that show up. So why was I able to demonstrate some of those buttons for you? Is because they were actually on the screen because of this area here. I placed those buttons on the screen. So basically what you want to do as an installer, as you're going through training with the staff members, you want to get rid of everything that they don't need and keep on anything that they do need. So this is my manager screen. So there's my sales function screen. That's the one that pops up, and it asks me for to end my day or print my day sales or look at the two reports that I can look at through there. Notice how it has an arrow, because when I clicked it, it took me to another screen. So you have two ways of getting there. I could just double-click on the green arrow, and now it took me to that submenu, which is my sales submenu. Notice how my green arrow is here. If I click it, I can go back up again to get me back to the main menu. So you literally can see the flow of how the screens work. Okay? Set weather. Maybe they don't care about the weather. So I don't want weather on that screen. It's just an extra button. It's just taking up some real estate. So to remove a button from the menu, you can just left-click on it, hold it down, and drag it over to the list. Your other option is the trash can. I could say, for instance, I don't want my delivery status form here. They're not doing delivery. There's no sense in having the button on the screen. I could just drag it up to the trash can. It's going to, again, put it back on the list. So it's the same functionality. It doesn't delete it per se, even though it's the trash can. I can either drag it over to the list or I can hit the trash can with it. What you're seeing over here, available menu functions, these are the common buttons that are associated with this screen. So these are the common buttons that you would put on your manager screen. But maybe you want to put something that's a little uncommon on that screen. So this is where I can hit my show all. This is now going to show every single button that I have the ability to put on any one of the screens. So for instance, my table screen. You're going to see the difference. See how this all changed. Now these are the ones that are common to the table screen. So now all of these are everywhere. So for whatever reason, let me go back to Manager. I've decided that instead of having good performance, if you remember, good performance is in my employee functions. So just to remind you, I'm going to click my green arrow. And this is going to change to, this is what's in that employee function screen. So maybe I don't want that extra click. Maybe I don't need all those buttons. So instead of having all that there, I'm just going to take it and I'm going to put it on my main screen. So that's an idea of how, how you can set this stuff up. Okay? Anything that has a red dot means that it is on a screen someplace. Anything that is a blue dot means that it is not out there at all. So if you are, say, for instance, setting up a delivery department, you do want to make sure that you've got your delivery button on one of the screens. I don't care where you put it. Again, the standard, again, if I take off Show All, it's going to show me that the standard is on the manager screen, but maybe for whatever reason I want to put it on the employee screen. I could. It's entirely up to you how you want to do that. Okay? The other thing I can do is I can kind of swap things around. So I don't like the way things are organized. So maybe in my table screen, I want this to make a little bit, oh, there's so much stuff on here. I want this to make a little bit more sense. Now, before I can reorder anything, I have to have a blank square. Okay, that's the first thing. So let me take us to a screen that we actually know I have a blank square in. There we go. So maybe my good performance and my bad performance I want down here. All I'm going to do is drag them. And I'll put my schedule up there and my transfer all checks down there because I want that to stand out. So you can just manipulate and rotate them around. Okay? The other thing you can do here is if you find a blank spot, any blank spot, right-click. You see we have new functions. I can click new functions. I can type in any description that I want. And again, help memo, I'm just going to, anything I want to put there I can do. Run program. You can now link an external program to it. So anything with an EXE. So it doesn't have to necessarily be within Pixelland. If I had some other application on here for whatever reason, if I wanted to point to Solitaire or whatnot, not that you would, but if you wanted to, you could. And then that would bring that up for them as a button. Okay? You also have some other parameters. This gets into the programming, whatnot. How does it work? So maybe I only want this to run on a specific station. So I can only get to the internet, say, on station 1. I don't want them getting into any other station. Or it's going to ask them for their employee code. Variety of other things that you can kind of set it up to do. So for instance, to give you a real-life example, I've actually set that up in my special menu. That is my PAR Help Desk Go to Assist button. So how I got it to go there is I have it pointing to Internet Explorer EXE. Now, I can't make it go specifically. I can't put the web address for the Go to Assist page here. But I can point it to Internet Explorer, and I can set the home page to the PAR Go to Assist Help Desk. If the store decides to change the Internet home page, then that's what they're always going to launch into. But this is one of those little kind of quick, easy ways that we were able to do it as long as they don't go and muck us up. Okay? That gives you an idea of how you can go ahead and you can customize that. Okay? So those are your function menus. So you definitely, when you're, again, as an installer, you want to go through all of these and you want to see what there is. Okay? Here's this little FYI. So BackOffice, which is where we're at. If you have new executables that you want to run via the BackOffice, this is also how you can get them there. So we've got 2 custom ones that we wrote for Baskin-Robbins, or actually Cake Wizards here, and also Overtime Agent. So as a good example, Overtime Agent is another program within Pixel that a lot of people just don't even use. We've actually put it on the BackOffice, so I could actually add it now to the BackOffice template. So if I wanted to add Overtime Agent here, right-click, customize, and I should be able to find the Overtime Agent now as an option that I could throw onto my little quick bar. Come on. Unfortunately, these aren't alphabetized. I'm just putting that out there. Yep, there it is. And just drag it on the list. Okay? And I don't know if we've actually gone through. You can put things on, take things off. Maybe I don't want member setup as a shortcut on there. Just drag it off. Of course, you have to have this custom window open, and you can just drag things on, drag things off. You can reorganize things. So maybe I want schedule moved over to next to employee setup, because it makes logical sense to me that employee setup, scheduling, and time clock would all be next to one another. Maybe I want coupons over here next to product setup, because those are two of the main functions that most restaurants will do right out of the gate. Menu setup, maybe I don't want them to have menu setup. For me, I try to keep this bar very clean for the things that they do on a daily basis, not for just that one-time configuration change that you might do, but things that they do on a daily basis, okay? The other thing you can do is you can do this drag separator. So to me, as a manager, product setup and coupon setup kind of go hand in hand. That's something you might do on every day. So I'm going to drag a little line there. So now that kind of breaks it out. Employee setup, scheduling, and time clock, they kind of go hand in hand. So it gives you a little organization, if you will. That's all. And then close. So now you can see that I have everything there. Okay, and again, all I did was right-click, hit Customize, and you can add and subtract as you want to go. Okay, you'll see that we have the toolbar. We have a main, this is the main toolbar. If you created a secondary file for it, you can. I don't necessarily recommend it, but you could have multiples out there. The actions we've already done and your options are some of the different various things that you can do. Change them out to large icons, show tips, so that's why when I kind of highlight over me, it gives me what the shortcut tip is. Animation is set to default, but you can do unfold, slide, fade, any of those other different options that you have that you can kind of customize the look and feel of their taskbar. Okay? All right, back to administration. Okay, you know, we're going to take our 5-minute break here because then we're going to get into printer setup, and that tends to be a little bit of a longer conversation. So let's go ahead and take 5. I have 8 minutes before the hour, so I'll see everybody back at 3 minutes after the hour. All right? Hello, everybody. We're back. All right. Printers. How to control printing, where things print, how they print, etc. So the first thing we're going to go through is printer channel setup. So this goes back to station setup, if you remember. We're talking about channels 1 through 9. And even though you don't see the 1 through 9 on the station screen, you have been seeing the local, the kitchen, the bar, and you can see where I got receipt audit down here. So this isn't about physical printers. This is about, if you will, grouping of items and how you would refer to them and how you would want to send their printing in various directions, if you will. So for instance, local is going to be your check printer. That's going to always be your receipt printer. That's by default. You always want to leave one as local because you might have a place that doesn't do remote printing. But again, every restaurant, no matter what, is always going to have a local check printer. So that's why we always leave that as printer number 1. Then you just kind of go by logic or however you want to set it up. Kitchen, I've got items that are going to go to the kitchen. Now, again, in my hotel scenario, I could have 3 different kitchens, but the bottom line is that my hamburgers and my steaks and all that need to go to a kitchen printer. Bar, I have bar items. I have my sports bar, my fine dining bar, but bar items are going to go to a bar. Maybe my pizzas are different. Maybe pizzas are unique. So maybe I have a pizza printer. So I offer pizza in 3 different places, room service, my coffee shop, and my fine dining restaurant. And no matter where I order it from, there is a specific location that pizzas have to be done at. So this is where you set up those routings. Some other things that you would do is KDS. So if you have a kitchen interface, you would also set up a KDS printer. We have a special driver for that as well that you would set up as a printer channel. So it's the first thing you're going to do is you're going to set up your channels. Now, one of the logics out there that some do, actually no, I'm going to back up. I'm not going to say that here yet. All right, so I have all my printer channels. All right, printer codes. These are literally the individual drivers for all the various different types of printers that are out there. That are already preset in the system, that are very common amongst the POS world. So whatever piece of the hardware that you're all selling to that particular store, as a programmer, you want to go in here and you're pretty assured that we've got it already in here for you. And basically, and this is your typical Epson thermal printer, that is the most common, popular one out there. We already have all the different codes set up in here for you, but obviously you can see there's various others that you can set up as well. But the majority of the codes are already set up in here that match that printer, so the printer will function the way we want it to function. So like, for instance, barcodes. So I want the printer to print barcodes out, and there's some programming that you can do in Pixel to allow for that to happen. But if the printer doesn't have the proper feature codes, if you will, set up, then obviously that's not going to work. If you don't see whatever printer it is that you're selling to your customers or they perhaps have, because maybe you're not replacing their equipment, go to the PAR website, to your portal website, and there's a list there of various other printers out there that have a lot of the codes. Or you could go to the actual printer's website, so Epson per se. Go to Epson's website, find the exact printer that you're looking for, and they always have the documentation. Also, you may have the book. If it's a new printer, you've got the setup books that come with. A lot of times they have all of this type of information in those setup books as well. Okay? So you need to have, this is where we're talking the physical printer. All right, so then what's next after that is network printer setup. So I've set up my channels. I make sure that I have my physical printer as a choice in here. Now I'm actually going to set up my network printers. So now I'm actually setting up in the system physical printers that I can attach things to. So again, I'm going to do my search button. So you can see I have a few in here already. So let me just keep it simple. We're going to go to the bar printer first. So you'll notice my bar printer. My network printer name is bar 9. My printer description is bar printer. So what we kind of do standard in the system, and this is for our help desk to help them out. So we're naming the printer a bar printer because I know it's a bar printer. The 9 indicates what station it's attached to. Our printers, unless you're setting them up as true network printers on the network and off of the BOC, you are attaching them to an actual physical station. So this helps our support people find, if you will, what printers attached to what, as opposed to coming in here and looking through their files, because here you can obviously see that it's attached to station 9, but it makes it a little easier when they're going through the list to see what physical machine it's attached to. So you put in what the name is, you put in what the general printer description is. So this could be actually my upstairs bar. And I could even, in this description, put it in as upstairs bar. Okay, what is the printer type? So this goes back to the screen we were just at. You need to make sure that the actual physical printer that you're using is actually here. So I'm assigning that to there. Again, what station is it attached to? Physically, what station have I hooked it up to? On what port? We support both LPT ports and also COM ports, so serial and USB. So you need to tell the system which one is it attached to on that physical unit. Okay? Timeouts in seconds. So if I try to print and the printer is not working, and that message is going to pop up and say my printer isn't working, how long before the message pops up? I personally think 45 seconds, which is the default, is too long. So I normally go in and I change this to about 20 seconds. Because if my printer is down, before that server walks away from the unit typically, I want them to see that error message that the printer isn't working and take action, as opposed to walking away. 45 seconds goes by, then the message finally pops up, and nobody is standing at the registers checking it out, and they don't realize that the printer isn't working. But that's where you set that timeout. All right? The other things that we can do here is auto redirect. So if you remember back to when we were on the front of the house and we went to Print Manager, we could choose what printers to send orders to. We could manually auto redirect them. Or for each individual physical printer you set up, you can go through here and you can pick what the auto is. So for instance, my upstairs bar printer isn't working for whatever reason. I maybe want to send it to the local printer that's right there, or maybe I'm going to send it to the kitchen, because I want to send it to the next physical printer that somebody's actually going to pay attention to. So after, in my world, 20 seconds, if the message is going to come up and it's going to say that printer is not working, upstairs bar 9, not working, I'm telling it to redirect to kitchen 8. So now, here's some other flags that go with that. Do I want that message to broadcast? So if I check mark broadcast error message, it's going to come up and say upstairs 9 printer is offline. And because I did a redirect, if I check this broadcast redirect message, it's then going to come up and say redirecting all print jobs to kitchen 8. If I don't have those checked, I'm not going to see those messages. Those messages are not going to broadcast. Therefore, I may not know. And if I don't have an auto redirect set up here, nobody might notice that orders aren't printing someplace. So you definitely want to have your broadcast message. If you're not going to redirect, that's fine. Some places don't. Maybe they only have one printer, or it's there's the kitchen printer, but it's on the other side of the building, or whatever the case is. Or I don't want to redirect to my receipts if my check printer goes down, my local printer goes down. For whatever reason, they may not want that. But you definitely, I believe, would want the error message to pop up so somebody actually does pay attention that there is a printer that is not working, and we've got orders that are backing up and they're not going anywhere. Okay. You also have the option here to do cancel auto cancel redirect. What that will do is if I do have an auto redirect set up, as soon as the printer comes back online, it is automatically going to cancel the redirect. So you don't have to manually manage that. The manager does not have to go into manager screens and Print Manager and cancel the redirect. If you remember, there was that cancel redirect button in there. That's why it's there. As soon as my upstairs bar 9 comes back online, they turned it on, they changed the paper, they took out the jam, whatever was going on that was causing it not to work. As soon as the system senses that it's there, it will automatically go back to printing properly. Okay? And also through here, you can now test the printer functionality. So as long as the station is up and running, you can be, after you set everything up, save everything, test it. You know, have someone run over to the upstairs bar and say, hey, check that bar printer and see if there's a test receipt on there. So that's another way you can cross-reference all your settings. So this is physically assigning the printer, giving a physical location to the printer, and getting it all working. Other things that we can do is we talked about consolidation. So let me actually do that in a place that's going to make sense. So my kitchen printer. Consolidation makes sense on a kitchen printer order. So and somebody was asking this about coursing, saying a consolidation wasn't working, or with seats. So if I choose, and we'll get into sorting and filters in just a moment, if I choose to have the orders go into the kitchen by seat numbers, so it's going to say seat 1, and it's going to say hamburger, pasta, pizza. Or in seat 2 is having a hamburger, a pasta. Seat 3 is having a hamburger. I'm going to have that first. So it's going to show me by seat position all the different food items. If I turn on Consolidate Order, then you're going to see a dotted line, and then you're going to have a little section at the bottom now that's going to consolidate for me. It's going to say 3 hamburgers, 2 pasta, 1 pizza. That's if you turn on Consolidated Orders. Okay, so that's where that comes into play. Now, filtering, this is where you can tell it on this particular printer by the different sales types. Am I allowed to send food? Would I send food or drinks or whatever the case is? In this case, it's my kitchen printer. Would I have my catering sales type items go to this printer? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, then I'm going to add it to this column over here. Or I should say, actually, if it's no, this will not print. So you can segregate what will print not just by station, but also by sales type based on each individual printer. So for instance, I don't want catering orders going to this kitchen printer. Or maybe I don't want my pickup orders going to that kitchen printer. I could have room service. So maybe I have a special room service printer that all my room service orders go to. I don't want that to go to that printer. So you can restrict again, customize again, how you are sending orders and where they go to. And this would override what you have set up in the station settings. Okay? So again, adding is just clicking. To remove it, again, you just highlight and click. Or if I want to remove all, just remove all. Okay? Sort orders. What are my options? So you have 4 different ways that you can actually have the tickets go to those remote printers. I can do it by course. So again, if we're doing coursing in a fine dining restaurant, so if I've set up my appetizers, my main course, my dessert courses and all that, then that's how it's going to sort it on the ticket. Product print priority. When you set up your products, you can set up a priority printing. And do I want it to print using that? So this is a bar situation. My favorite way of doing this is a bar situation. When my bartender gets his orders, I want them to float by the most labor-intensive items on top and the least labor-intensive items on the bottom. So I don't want my drinks to die. So I would want all my frozen and ice cream drinks to print first, then my mixed drinks to be second, and things that are already done, like bottles of beer. I maybe want that to be the 4th item that prints. Maybe I want glasses of wine to be right before that. So you do it, when I set this up in my bar, I did it labor intensively because I didn't want my beer to sit there getting flat while I'm still making my ice cream drink, especially if I have draft beers. The difference is a bottle beer versus a draft beer. I don't want that to get flat. Maybe I'm pouring Guinness, so maybe I want Guinness to go to the top because if anybody's pulled Guinness knows it's a good 5 minutes to pull a good, proper Guinness. So you want to sort it out like that. For kitchen, maybe you want, again, your labor-intensive high-end items top. So I want my steaks first because no matter what, my steaks are always going to take longer to make than a pasta dish. Or maybe I've got some kind of a souffle. So my souffle or casserole that we will literally make, you know, per order. I want those on top always because it's more labor-intensive and it's a longer cooking time. And it's something that I don't want when my cook is scanning the ticket. I don't want them to accidentally miss it. Okay, so you can set up print priority by product. Report category print priority. This is the second time we've talked about report categories. Report categories, again, you set up because you want to track groups of things. So I want to track all my desserts. I want the detail on my desserts, but sometimes I want to go to my reports and say, give me my dessert sales, or beverage sales, or wine sales, maybe specials. I'm going to set up a category just for specials because I want to track. I don't care that it might be a special hamburger, maybe it's lobster, maybe it's a special steak. I may have report categories for all of those, but it's a special that I don't offer very often, and I want to track it against everything else. So that's another thing you do with report categories is that you can kind of leverage things against one another. You can, again, do priority printing against it as well. So back to my bar scenario, I may have a report category. Maybe my report category isn't just bar. maybe I do break it out by beer, wine, mixed drinks, and specialty drinks. Maybe that's how I break all that out, because again, I want to look at reporting numbers, I want to look at percentages, I want to look at profitability. Where am I making my money? I want to look at waste. Which one is costing me more and eating into my bar cost? So it's another thing you do with report categories. Now for both of these, when you're setting up these priority numbers, this is going to seem a little backwards. So like I was saying, I want my frozen drinks to print first, my mixers to drinks print second, my wine glasses to print third, and my beers to print fourth. We don't go 1, 2, 3, 4. We reverse it. So the higher the number you choose, the higher on top of the list it's going to be. And you have 1 through, I think, 99, whatever it is. I usually stay like within 100, if you will. So the things that no matter what, maybe I want, and my frozen drinks are always going to be first, no questions asked, I might make them 99. And then my mixed drinks, I might make 94. You can leave gaps. We suggest that you leave gaps in your print priority, because what if you get some new item in that's a little bit more labor intensive and you do want to separate it out? You want to put it in the middle somewhere. So that's why we don't go 1, 2, 3, 4 or 98, 99, 98, 97, 96, because then you leave yourself no room, and then you end up having to shift everything around, which, trust me, once you put in print priorities, you do not want to shift anything around. So you may want to go in increments of, say, 2 or 5 or whatever it is that you want to go with. But the key to remember here is that we go higher number first to low number. So 1 will always be the last thing that ever prints. So just kind of keep that in mind. Make a note to yourself on that. Seating. So if I'm going to do things by seats, by positions, seat 1, seat 2, seat 3, seat 4 kind of stuff. So this is telling it how I want it to sort, and that also turns on, if you will, how it prints on those requisition tickets. Now you can do a combination. So maybe I want to do courses. So if I'm in a fine dining restaurant, this is very common. You set up courses. So I want to see course 1, course 2, course 3. But I also want the seat breakout. So my secondary sorting is going to be by seat. So I'm going to see course 1, and then I'm going to say seat 1, Caesar salad, seat 2, garden salad, seat 3, lobster bisque. Course 2, seat 1, ribeye, seat 2, lobster, seat 3, pasta. So the chef will then see all of that information in that order. And again, remember, if we do this plus turn on consolidated orders, at the bottom of the ticket, it's going to consolidate for us. So if I had 2 Caesar salads, it's going to show 2 Caesar salad, 1 lobster bisque soup. I had 2 steaks, 1 lobster, 3 pastas, whatever the case is, that then is going to consolidate in the bottom of that ticket. Okay? And there's no limit. So maybe, the chef is really going to be very special, if you will. Again, this one, I take that back. This doesn't really work because seats are going to override it. Sometimes they like to see, give me my burgers first before my steaks, or et cetera. But again, it's going to go by the order that you do here takes precedent. If I were to reverse things around, so say, for instance, I take seat out and now add seat back underneath, that's going to be all goofy because it's going to be course first, then it's going to go product priority. So maybe my steaks print before my pastas. So what if my seat 1 had the pasta? So instead it's going to show seat 2 is the steak and seat 1 is the pasta. So that's going to get kind of goofy when it comes to your runners trying to serve. If they're using the ticket to serve off of, which is what they do. They use these tickets in order to get the right to that auctioning off food. So that's going to get kind of confusing. So keep in mind when you do stuff like this and when you are combining the different variations that you make sure the tickets look right and they're not getting everybody, totally confused. Okay? This right here is a very common way of doing it in a fine dining restaurant. Okay? So other section that we do through here is split courses. So if I have, when I say split courses, it's really splitting out checks. So if I have split checks, do I want it to split out on the receipt? So if I know that everybody's going to want a separate check and I put it all in as a separate like that, do I want that to show to the kitchen, yes or no? If I don't want that to show to the kitchen, it means nothing to them, then you're going to do not split. And it's just going to do course 1, course 2, course 3, and then the sub organization of the different seats. Or I could do dividing lines. So again, if I'm going to break it out by seats, and I'm also breaking out the checks by seat, I'm going to see course appetizers, seat 1, everything they're going to have, there's a line. Course 1, or Course A, if you will, C2, everything they're having, and then a line. So it's going to subdivide out, which in some respects makes it a little easier sometimes for the kitchen to look at the ticket. It's entirely up to you how you want to look at that. As separate jobs, if they want separate checks, and I can then send it to the kitchen as separate jobs. So I have 4 people at the table. They've each ordered, forget coursing at this point, you know, they're just having whatever they're having, but they all want separate checks. College town, you know, that type of thing. I would get a separate ticket. So 4 people, 4 chits in the back. The challenge with that is making sure that all the food comes out at the same time. So you want to kind of keep an eye on that. Again, it's going to be by each individual seat, if you will, or when you split the check, each of the individual check groupings that you did. So if my first person had, you know, bruschetta and a hamburger, there's going to be a ticket that goes back just for bruschetta and hamburger. And it's going to be completely unrelated to the second person on that table that maybe had a Caesar salad and a pizza. So the kitchen's not going to be able to coordinate those 2 together to get timings out, if you will, properly, right? The other option is literally each individual item has a separate ticket. So the bruschetta would go as a separate ticket. The burger would go as a separate ticket. The pizza goes as a separate ticket. Regardless of the fact that we're talking separate printers here, we're literally having it go out to each individual. Each individual item has its own requisition ticket. My understanding, this was custom developed for some place in Japan that literally had a bunch of cooks that were on the line, and every time a ticket came up, somebody just pawned it off. It didn't really matter. It wasn't done by stations, if you will. It was just done by person. So I can't say I've ever seen that one used. Dividing lines, yeah, I've seen that one. That's actually a semi-common one, or not splitting it at all. That's the other more common one, if you will. Custom chits. So this is sort of like, again, like with custom receipts. The default design of the chit is the default design of the chit. But if you want to do something, again, on a per printer basis that's customized, then this is where you would set that up. And I'm pretty sure if you go into the partner portal, there are some examples of some receipts, custom receipts that are out there that you can download, and you can kind of use those as guides to understand the verbiage on them and what some of the differences that you can maybe make them look. So maybe they want the sales type in large bold print to make it easier for the chefs to see what they're making, what department it goes to. Or maybe they want that smaller, or maybe they don't want it on there at all. They don't really care. Maybe they want the table number to totally stand out. Or if you're going to put customer names on the tickets, they want that to be bolden. So anything that's outside the default of how our normal chit prints now, this is where you could use that and make some of those adjustments for them. Okay, so this is setting up your individual physical printer, and then manipulating what goes where, how it prints, and what physical printer you're attaching to it. Okay, so now if you can kind of see this a little bit, now that you've done that piece, that's when you now go into station, printer points, and then you tell it which one of those that you set up you point to. So for instance, in my bar, so for station 1, maybe station 1 is located upstairs. So now that's why I'm telling it that any of my print channel bar items goes to the upstairs bar printer, which also has that 9 because it's attached to station 9. Whereas opposed to my sports bar downstairs, maybe stations 3 and 4 are downstairs. They're going to go to the downstairs bar, and I'm going to take that same area, bar, and I'm going to point to that downstairs bar printer instead. So common channels, because you have common items, but you get to tell it which printer exactly you want it to go to. All right? I know it gets a little confusing, the whole printer setup, because there's so many variations that you can do with it that you got to kind of play with it a little bit. All right, so those are all the printer stuff. Web2Go we're going to hold off on. Policy setup. So some of you have been around for a while, you maybe started to realize that a lot of the functionality that's in the system these days, as opposed to putting in new checkboxes and adding a new place to trigger it, if you will, we're doing a lot of this with policy setups. So let's just kind of go through, first of all, the functionality of the screen. So you'll see here, you come in here automatically to station 1. You also see here where you see we're saying show all. So this is, I'm telling it, I want it to show me all of my different categories, if you will. So you can see we've got policies that are specific just to back office, policies that are just specific to interfaces, pocket POS, POS basically being anything front of the house, reporting, system, overall system, and web to go. Station 1, it's showing me Station 1 because that's what I'm in right now, or all stations. Okay, and you don't really see things changing, but there are ways that you can manipulate what you're doing as we go through it. My arrow keys, you'll notice I don't have plus arrow keys, so our little task, our little toolbar, if you will, is a little different. But if I arrow over, I'm going to be arrowing through stations. And you'll see as I do, I'm changing the station number here. Okay? And then back again. Flashlight, again, is another way for me to go to specific stations. So you have two ways of manipulating your specific stations. Okay? So if I open up my pull down and I'm on Station 3 right now, notice, this is showing me what there is for all or what there is for Station 3 only. If I set certain parameters or certain policies that only affect Station 3, I would see a plus sign next to the category or group that I had that set for. Okay? By showing all, I want them to show me all the available policies that are out there. All right? So as you can see, we've got a bunch of them back here. So just for instance, for back office, you know, allow back orders, edit cash outs. So let's just go into one, let's say, mask employee number. That's one that's kind of common now. So basic outline on this is going to tell you what the name of it is. This is the name that gets inserted to the Pixel 32 INI file. So I'm back on that again. Back in the day, you used to edit that manually, and you had to know exactly the verbiage of the policy that you wanted it to be so that you put it in the 32 INI properly in the right verbiage. So if we look at the 32 INI, we're going to see mask employee password exactly typed as we're seeing it here. Possible values, yes or no. Sometimes it's yes or no, sometimes it's 0, 1, 2, 3. It all depends on the policy that you're looking at and the options and built in. Default value. So as a startup database, what's the default? The default is yes. So masking employee numbers, we're by default masking them. Section, all stations. So again, if I had this set up just on one station, it's going to show me that it was only set up on, say, Station 3. And again, if that was the case, when I went to Station 3 here, that would have had a plus sign next to back office, and I would be able to see which one it was. Category, what category or grouping is it in? It's back office. And when was this introduced? It was introduced in version 11.0. Okay? Then you're going to get a brief description. If enabled, the employee password field in employee setup will be masked with asterisks. The default is yes. Now you can see in my database, I have it set to no. All right, so again, the default versus what is actually set up. And you can see here, apply to. It's applied to all stations. So my current value is no. So I'm not masking my numbers right now. And I've applied this to all stations. Okay? If I wanted to change it, box, click yes. Now you're going to watch my navigation buttons at the bottom change. I apologize. Over here to the right-hand side, you're going to see now apply. I could pick specific station because I'm on Station 3. It's the only one that I have the option to apply it to only. And I can't just say I want to, you know, I can't do that once and say, okay, on Stations 1 and 3 I want this. It's either a single unit or all stations. If you're doing singles and you've got multiple singles you want to do it to, then you have to go into each of them and repeat the functionality. But I want this applied to all stations and apply. Policy, mask employee password, save in section, all stations, apply change, yes. Okay, so now that is set up as a yes. All right, so as you're going through, and as you can see, we have a ton of policies these days. And if you look at the new reference guide, or the version 12 guides, you're going to see in there some of the new policies that have been added to the system. I'm just going to see if I can, let me see if I can find one really, really, really fast. Of course, because I want to do this really, really fast, I can't. Just so you guys can see. Come on, come on, come come on, all the way down to the end. Reference labels, nope, that's the interface. Policies, here we go, new policies. Okay, so here's an idea. So searching out a new policy, or just searching a policy in general. This is where your find button comes into play. So I'm going to go exact because I have one right in front of me. Let's see. Allow current transaction points. If I typed right, it's going to find it. There it is. This is a brand new policy, so you can see here it says version 12. Yes or no. Selections, it's all stations for station number. If enable, allow member points earned on current transaction to be redeemed on close of that transaction. If disable, points earned can be redeemed on the next member transaction. So this is something that was new for members. So I order 5 hamburgers, and I hit that magic number where I've got 15 hamburgers now, and am I going to allow them now to get a discounted burger, considering they just bought the new 4, or am I going to say, no, you don't get that until you come in the next time? So they can't redeem it the exact same day they got it, if you will. It's like a buy-for-one coupon situation. You know, buy 2 meals, and you can redeem that right now, or buy 2 meals and come in on your next visit, and then you get a free meal, something to that effect, but we're doing this with members. So what's a good thing to do here as a programmer, when you're setting stuff up, so say for instance I'm setting up credit cards, and I want to make sure I hit everything to do with credit cards, and maybe I'm worried about tips, so I can go through here and I can just type in tip and hit OK. The system is now going to take me systematically through every individual policy that has the word tip in it, whether it's in the actual physical name or it's in the description. So this is how I can assure myself that I've turned on all the functionality and flag settings and policy settings that I need to enable for this store. So the first one up is tips paid out, yes or no. In my world, I say yes. You know, find next will take me to the next policy. So do I want to do a tip warning? What was that about? You know, again, because we're always adding policies, it's so easy not to know. And are any of you going to remember the 200-odd plus policies? I think it's probably more than that are out there. No, you're not going to remember these policies. So this is a nice way of making sure that you hit everything that is touching what it is you're working on, whether it's setting up tips, dealing with members, cash outs, reports, auto end of day, anything along those nature. I always put it in find, put in a keyword that I'm sure is going to find what I'm looking for, and then just keep hitting next, find next, to make sure that each of the individual policies that are affected, that can affect what I'm trying to do, show up. And I can make sure that I've validated each of these. Now, you can also go to the Pixel portal, and there is a list of all of the policies on there. Back on the old portal, you can view it and you can sort it. On the new portal, you can actually print out the list and you can download it, which is actually nice. I actually downloaded mine into an Excel spreadsheet, so I kind of do the same sorting that I'm doing on the system on that beforehand. So I can kind of go through and sort by, you know, anything that has tip in it, or if I just want to sort by BackOffice or POS or whatever I want to do, so I can actually read it through on that way too. So that's another way of looking at it as well. Okay, so that's policies. And again, if you'll notice with all these, there's a lot of yes and a lot of no. How is it going to function? So keep in mind, especially like say in system setup. So let me take us back to that a second. I turned on auto end of day. That's great. I turned on auto end of day. But what other functionality ties into that? You know, what else can I do with that? So I'm going to put in auto. So auto receive POS. I don't want that one. Calculate. Inventory, nope, don't care about that. Active server, nope, that doesn't affect me. Auto end of day. Auto combo recognition, nope. Customer, and as you see, I'm going through. Now I'm hitting auto end of day stuff. And I could have just typed in auto end of day too, but I just wanted you guys to see how you can, you know, be more specific on things. So everything you do, this is all the different policy settings that can affect how auto end of day acts. Great, you turned it on, but how does it function? Do I want it to clock out the employees? Do I want to force it? So even if I have an open check, something fails, one of our checkpoints fails. Our checkpoints are open checks, uncashed out employees, unclocked out employees. If it fails on any of those, do I still want it to run auto end of day? Some places yes, some places no. Auto end of day indicator, do I want this little funky little red and blue lighting thing to happen? Auto end of day reports, do I want the auto end of day reports to print? And you have, now this is one of the ones where you had some options. I have 0, 1, 2, 3. Do not print. Print end of day report only. Print batch summary report only. Print options 1 and 2. So print the end of day and print the batch settlement report. Real life example on why we might want to manipulate these. My store is in a, I have an auto end of day. My cashiers, my closing people are just employees. There's nobody really with any manager functionality. I don't want them to know this information. Or my opening shift, let's actually turn it around. My opening shift is just an average everyday kind of employee. I don't want them to know how much money I made the night before. So when they walk in the door and my auto end of day say kicks on at 1 a.m. and then the reports print, they'll be able to see how much money the store made, how much I took in cash, credit cards, my sales, etc. I don't want them to have that information. Therefore, I don't want my auto end of day reports to print because I don't want that information just lying there for anybody to see. So that might be an example of why they would not want the reports to auto print. Some of them just don't want them to print because they don't use them. There are managers that are much more comfortable using the back office reports, so they don't feel the need to have the receipt reports, so they just rather not have them. So that's another idea for that. Okay? So that is policies. This is huge. I definitely recommend you take some time, read up on policies, go look at the policy list, download it, play, do a search so you can see all of the variations. Once you turn a functionality on, what are the different ways that you can manipulate how it actually works, how the screen looks, etc. Okay? Form Designer. We're going to hold off on Form Designer. Form Designer is a whole conversation all in and of itself. But this is the piece that they introduced in version, brain fart, 10. That allows us to customize our order screens. Everything about that front end screen that we customize on it, this is what allows us to do it, and that's what makes us really unique in the industry, and that we can do just about anything to screens. Okay, table setup. I'm just going to get through table setup here. So, setting up your tables. Again, quick service, you don't care about this. So again, if you're working at McDonald's or Baskin-Robbins or any place that doesn't use tables, you don't care about this section, but we care about this section. Table setup. So this is where table section setup. On my front of the house, you had the option to do bayside, patio, poolside, and terrace. That's why we have those options. Back in the day, you used to see smoking and non-smoking really often. A lot of places, they really don't do sections anymore. Again, if it's a huge restaurant, and let's say it's a huge restaurant, there's upstairs, downstairs. You may do upstairs and downstairs. Again, in my hotel situation, I may do, again, I'm probably going to do it by revenue centers too, but I may also do sections and do sports bar, coffee shop, etc. Okay? So nothing fun and fancy in here. It's just the description. What default revenue center is it attached to? So if I am going to do a table section and I'm attaching it to a specific revenue center, this is where you would do it. So let me just add coffee shop. Coffee shop floor, because maybe I have a counter too. This is going to be attached to my coffee shop revenue center. Okay? What can I control? Enforce employee lockout. This is what keeps employees from getting into each other's tables once you own the table. So if I open the table up, no one else can get into that with the exception of a manager and a manager overriding it. If I don't have that checked off, anybody can get into it. So in places where they do tip pooling and everybody literally does take care of everybody's tables, you would not want to enforce that. Back in the day, I worked in a banquet hall where even though it was banquets, we did have tables. And for some of the weddings, you did do orders on the tables, and sometimes they paid for stuff, and sometimes you had to put an order in for whatnot. We would not enforce that because it was a free-for-all. Everybody just kind of floated around and took care of everybody's customers. Okay? Enforce rated item before ordering. This is common in pool halls and bowling alleys. So bowling and pool tables, you can set up rated items where you basically they rent the bowling lane or they rent the pool table for a specific price by the half hour, the hour, however you want to set it up. But again, you want those areas to be used for that. That's the main core of your business. This will prevent anybody from just sitting at a bowling lane and ordering food. They have to, by enforcing this, you have to have rented the lane and be paying for the lane before we'll allow you to bring up a hamburger or a hot dog or whatever the case may be. They have to have rung up the rental for the bowling lane rental or the pool table rental. Now, with the enforcement, with the rated items, without getting too far ahead, you can also suspend those because maybe I've bowled a couple of frames, but we're going to take a break and we're going to order some food and then we're going to resume it. As long as the rated item is on the ticket, even if it's suspended, then you can order food. But you need to have that rated item on the ticket before they can place an actual product order. Hide from table layout. Maybe I don't want it to show up on the floor. It's defunct. I don't want it anymore. There's no need for it to be on the floor layout. I don't want anyone else to see it. Okay? And let me save that. All right, so that's setting up the section. Now, you've set up your section. Now you want to set up your tables. So this is a screen where you actually put in the physical table numbers. So you physically create the table numbers. We've got, by default, I think the database comes with like 150 or 100 or something like that. I forget what the default database comes with. Here's where you go and you set up how many customers are each one of the tables. This is what gives you those little nodes on the floor layout screen that represents the seats. How does it have the little protrusions that show the 2 or 4 or 6 top, if you will. Assigning it to a specific section. So it knows that tables 11, 12, 13, 14 are poolside tables versus the 20s are terrace-size tables. Minimum and maximum. So minimum number of customers that can be sat on that table, maximum number of customers that can be sat on that table. This totally plays into reservations. This will not stop you if you're ringing it up as the server and you want to take it up to, say, 8 people. It's going to let you have seats 1 through 8. But when you're in your reservation system and you're sorting and you're saying pull up all my 6 tops or pull up all my 4 tops, this is one of the filters that will allow it to be on the list, yes or no kind of thing. Okay? Can reserve. Can I reserve this table? Is it going to be on my reservations list so I could actually reserve it? Okay, so point here. You want to always leave some tables that you say no for, and I'm going to tell you why. It's for walk-ins, number one, and so that you don't oversell your store. So you always want to have a couple backup tables on the floor, so just in case, God forbid, something goes wrong, you've got people waiting and you've got no place to seat them because you've taken every one of your tables and you've given them to a reservation. So if you leave 1 or 2 that can be reserved as no, you'll always have that backup table that that you have reserved that somebody can actually use. Sales type. You can also, it can be station defaulted. So again, we've got the default station sales type, dine-in versus pickup versus bar, etc. Or you can assign certain tables that only work in certain departments. So no one else can get a hold of those tables unless they're assigned to that specific sales type. Okay? All right. This is one of the very few areas that you'll notice there is no flashlight here. I'm not going into another screen. You actually edit within the grid. So if I wanted to change that to a 6, I just have to type in a 6 and save it. Okay. All right. So table layout, the pretty picture that we see. Okay. This is where you create those floor files and what shows up on the POS system and what you can, again, set up terminal or station specific. So the first thing we have here, and you can download this off of the portal, the Partner Center. It's a JPEG file. You can create your own JPEG files if you want to have them all gorgeous and pretty. And like you see here, we've got the pool and we've got the bar settings. And if I float down, you'll be able to see some of the other. Well, maybe I can't float down. Nope. Come on. Nope, that's it. there it goes. Taking its time. There we go. You can see the edge. Now this looks like it's being a bit of a memory hog, but the beauty of this is it's not a memory hog. When the programmers design this, they're using the same logic that Windows uses for desktops, so it doesn't eat up a ton of memory. But you create the JPEG file, and basically it's an underlay, if you will. Notice there's no tables right now. There's no pretty pictures with tables and anything like that, because it's literally our desktop. We're just having a picture on the back of our work area. And then on top of that, you load an actual table layout file. So if you don't want this, over through the top we have some of our buttons. So what you can do under layout settings, display background, uncheck that. That makes it go away. So also for this background, what you have to know about it, this is a kind of a one-time thing, if you will. Okay, let me get out of there for a second. Save changes now. Yes, you can have multiples in your system, but the system will only point to one at a time. In your Pixel POS folder, and this absolutely has to be this way, in order for that JPEG file to read itself, because you notice I just check-marked and uncheck-marked. It didn't ask me anything else. I didn't point to a specific file or anything like that, because as a default, the file is in the system. You need to, how am I sorting? How am I sorting? By application? Yeah. I'm looking for this guy right here, floorlayout.jpg. It has to be named this. This is what the system is looking for. So when you tell it you want the background, it needs this naming standard. So yes, you can create multiples of these, but you can only have one displaying at any given time. And you always have to have it named. The current one, the one you actually want to see, has to be named floorlayout.jpg. That's the only reason it recognizes it. All right, so there's that as an FYI. So let me get back in here. And you're basically just turning it on or turning it off. So again, in layout setups, take off the check mark, it goes away. And then I'm left with a blank white screen. I do not have a floor layout right now. I have not created anything right now. When you first open it, there's nothing here. So this is kind of what you guys are going to probably be seeing. So we have a couple of options here. I can do a new one. I can load an existing one. Okay, so I'm going to keep it with a new one because I want to go through all the different functionalities with you guys here. So the first thing you're going to see is this gray line over here. That line right there, and as I scroll, you're going to see another horizontal line that it's going to be probably down a little further. All right, where are you? There it is. It's about the dimensions of the screens that I'm working on. So again, if I go into layout settings and I go out to layout resolution, I have to tell it what is the dimensions of the screen that I'm building this for. So right now, I'm defaulting to 1024 by 768. If I actually want it to be 80 by 60, click that and click OK. Then you'll see how the grid closed itself up. Because on the POS system, the screen dimensions, this is an area that they can see. Here's the other area they can see. This is where they probably use the zoom in and zoom out. Or you would set it up for the different sections. Now you're maybe understanding what the sections do. It gives you that display real estate so that they can see everything that they need to see. And when you're building your grid, your layout, you're building it so the screen can handle it. So the tables actually are there and they appear. So you can go, the defaults we have are the 640 by 480, the 800 by 600, or 1024 by 768. If you have some unique registers and unique screen dimensions, you can put those dimensions here as well. Okay? And you have the choice of showing the lines or not showing the section lines. So if I take that away, I lose my section lines. I like having the section lines because then I can, when I'm placing my tables out on my screen, I get a better understanding of what it's going to look like out on POS. I'm not just guessing. Okay, so I'm going to put my lines back. By default, they want to come back. All right. So across the top here, you have two areas. We have tables. So these are the icons, if you will, or the pictures for your tables, or layouts, if you will. So we have three different styles of tables. And to put a table on, all I'm going to do is click on the type that I want and drag it onto the desktop. There's my circle. So now it wants me to assign a table number to this circle. I could, A, create a new one, which I don't want. I already have one through 150 already created. I'm now giving a physical picture, if you will, to the tables that I've already gotten created. So maybe this is going to be table 1. Whoops. And OK. So now my table 1 that is in my table setup already with its various seatings and maximum minimums and whatever section it belongs to now has a physical button that my staff can hit. I have a circle, I have a square, and by default, once you set your numbers, it's going to automatically want to go to the next available. And I have a diamond. And if I don't want that to be 30, maybe I wanted that to be 40, I can just type over and fix that. So those are the 3 table styles that we have. Okay, they're coming up blue because if you notice here, my little color grid box is blue. By default, that's what comes up. If I wanted different colors, I pick the color. Now that changed because I had highlighted it. Or I can pick, oops, let's try that again. Pick the color and then bring down the new table. So I can, oh, now you're just being a brat. He only wants to do it in the edit right now. All right. So a couple of things that I can do with these. You'll notice here I have large, medium, and regular. By default, I've already clicked them to be large when I was adding them. If I wanted it medium, a little smaller, regular, even smaller yet. It all depends on how big your dining room is, how many tables you have, and what you're trying to accomplish. Again, keep in mind, though, when you're doing that you got to think about the human finger and the fact that they need to be able to touch on the screen in order to get to the table. If you've got everything on top of one another and it's really hard for them to get the right table when they're touching the screen, you obviously want your tables to be a little bit bigger. Okay. The other thing you can do is when you notice when I click on these and they change colors, because I'm like now in edit mode. See how I have edit over there? That's telling me I have edit mode. A couple of things I can do in edit mode. One, you see I can change color. So maybe for whatever reason I want that to be green. Okay. The other thing, if I put my mouse on it, come on. Oh, there she goes. And you get it to the point where you get the up and down arrow, if you will. I can now drag it, and I can change the shape and the size of the table. You just got to kind of get your mouse hovered over it. Come on. Till you get to the point where you get the little diagonal arrows. And I'm not being talented today. Oh, come on, you. Okay, well, this one's being a brat and it doesn't want to do it for me. But you get the idea. You just have to get on that little dot. I'm not sure why my dot doesn't want to work right. There we go. That one's happy. There we go. Hold down the left mouse button and drag. Okay. The other thing you can do is you can do multiples. So if I hold down my control key and I left click on them, I can select all of them at once. And now I could go to color and I could change all of them at the same time. Okay. Ooh, we don't want that color. That hurts the eyes. All right, so that's manipulating tables. The other thing that we can do is maybe we don't want to do a graphic on the background, but I do want some type of division or distinction in the tables. So we can do like little background layouts. So that's what these are about. So if I click on this, say the dark spot, just drag it down. Actually, the shape of it first. So these are the different shapes that we have. Let me pull him down. Come on. Oh, I am not having good luck with this. There we go. Pull him down and then stretch out the space that you want it to be on. All I'm doing is holding down my left mouse button. When I finally get the shape and the size that I want, I'm going to let go. So now that basically is, say, a rug. And the color is the purple because that's what I happen to click on it. But if I want to change the color out, and I can do it just like I did with the tables. So click on that and color. Oh. Edit. There we go. Bingo. I can move this around, and now I've done it on top of my tables. Your arrows here will allow you to bring forward or send to the back. So I can either hide my tables or have them basically sit on top of this. Other things that we can do with this is you can put patterns on whatever this little grid might be. So maybe I want this to have little diagonal lines. So I'm in my edit mode, and I can click my little diagonal lines on it. Or maybe I want it to be blank, or I want little lines through it. Whatever you want to do, these are some different options that you have on this. Okay, if I want to go back to solid, I'm back to solid. Okay, text, you can put text here. So if I click my text box and just click, now I have a text box. So maybe instead of, again, doing the different sections or departments or whatever, I'm going to go ahead and say this is coffee. Coffee East. So it's the east side of my coffee area. Now notice, because I'm still in alpha, every time I click, it's bringing me up a new text. So maybe I'm going to do coffee back. So pull hat off. Oops, cancel. Again, I need to go to edit and then pull away what I've added. Because then I could also do, let's say I have another, I'm going to lay down another little section, if you will, or area. Call it, area rug, whatever. Maybe I want to have that color. Edit. And this is my back area. And I probably don't want that. Obviously, you can see that I have kept it the same color. Having a mouse click issue today. Sorry, folks. So I'd want to change that color on that. There it is. So I could actually see it. Edit, color. Maybe I want that in black. Oh, no, I don't want that in black. And again, bring forward or bring back. So then I could put tables on here. So maybe these are going to be my 50s. All right. So another thing that you can do is you can adjust multiples at the same time. So if I click on all of these and now right-click, I get a little sub-menu here that I can go through and make some changes. I can change their table information, so it'll take me back to the table screen. I could change the numbers, the number of seats, their type, their section. Everything that was in our one grid, you can make all those edits here. The other thing that you might want to do is to kind of line them up is do an alignment here. So in this case, because I have these as the top, I don't want to do left side. Anything if I did left side, it's going to look to the far left side of it and line everybody up. Right now, if I did that, all three of these would jump on top of one another. But maybe I want to align them by the top. So the one that's the highest, as soon as I click that, they're all going to come in sync with that. Okay? And one of the things that I should point out is, you'll notice because there's some kind of herky-jerky here, there is a grid line through here that exists, and that's why there's kind of like a jerking motion when you're moving things around. If you don't want that grid line, you want to take it away because what it wants to do is snap to grid. This little guy here, you unclick that, unsnap to grid. So now I can literally move things like right on top of one another. As opposed to if I had it snap to grid as I'm moving this, it's only going to let me get so close. because it's looking for that that grid that's here that we're not actually seeing. So there's a lot that you can do through here when you're actually building your different table layouts. All right. I know we're running a little late, so let me just finish this off real fast. So one of the things I can do is I can save this, or I can save it as. I can give it different names. I can do whatever I want to do with it. So if I go ahead, I'm just going to click Save As. Okay. Now I can also load existing grids that are out there. So you could have multiple floor layouts. And again, if I'm talking my hotel, I'm going to have one for my coffee shop, one for my fine dining, I'll have one for my sports bar, etc. So load layout, and yes, I'm going to save changes because it's preserving the one that I just did. And it's asking me, now it's going to bring it up for me so I can go find my other layouts. They are always in PixelPOS, and you'll see that I have a couple. I've got a Topeka, I got Standard, and I got Demo. Let me just pull up my Topeka one. Do I want to replace the existing grid? I'm going to say yes because I did go ahead and save. Layout. Oh, I didn't want to do that. I replaced the wrong one. Come on. Oh, I did that backwards. Sorry, folks. Load, Standard, Open. There we go. So this is the one that you guys are used to seeing. So you can manipulate which ones that you do. You can create multiple ones. And to get out of here, save changes. No, I don't feel like saving changes. This goes back to station setup, where here you're telling it which one to look at. So once I've created them, I can tell it that, you know what, station 1, you look at the one that's labeled Topeka. And say that. And station 2, or say station 3, is going to look at the standard one. So that's how you can get your different table layouts by screen. All right? All right, so we're going to cut off there, and I know we ran late. I apologize for that. I just wanted to get through that piece with you all. Let's still take about 5 or 10 minutes, though, for any questions. So Emily, if anybody's got any questions, you guys go ahead and type them in to your little chat windows, and Emily will run them past me.
Thanks, Donna. I do have a couple questions already.
Okay.
The first question would be, I did an upgrade from version 6 to 12, and under printer setup, my list is very small. Is there a way to restore the latest printer list?
From literally version 6 to version 12?
That's what it says.
Wow. So he doesn't have all. So interesting. It sounds like it wiped out what's in the defaults. Because typically what happens with our upgrades is that we actually literally add new ones to the list. We don't normally get rid of anything. We add to the list. So it sounds like something kind of hinky in that upgrade. My first suggestion, obviously manually entering them all back in, which is kind of a pain in the butt. I would give support a call on that one and see if in somewhere in the system, because you'll notice we don't have an inactive flag in these, but again, we don't delete anything. So I would think that they're somewhere in the SQL table, and for whatever reason, they're set to 0 to be inactive, and that's why you're not seeing them. I would think, though, that they'd be able to go into the SQL tables and recover them for you.
Actually, Donna, this is Scott. Can you hear me?
What? Oh, yeah.
Donna? Okay. You are quite correct in that. Now, located up at the very top at the pull-down menus, there is one actually there, I think it's called Windows or System or something like that, that allows you to view inactive records. And so if those records do reside within the database, just uncheck that and then go into the network printer setup, and then you will be able to see those records.
But you still won't be able to. See how this shows is active? You can't turn them on here because there's no functionality for it right there.
Oh, okay. I'm going blind.
Yeah.
I don't have a computer with me here.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, there's no checkbox for it, so that's why they're going to have to go through support.
But yeah, they'll have to edit
but that's
the database
actually, yeah, that's actually good though, because yeah, if you do go through and check it, you can at least see in the list whether or not you can see the rest of your list, and you can see where it says is active in this list, and everything has a 1 by it. What my thought is that they are. Is what my thought is on this. Okay, next question.
Next question is there a document that explains all policies?
There is, again, if you go into the portal, you can download that. And back in the day, on the old portal, you can actually sort through it, and you could download that. And like I said, I downloaded mine into Excel, and it has all of the different verbiages in policy setup. So all of what you see through here, so for every one of these that I click and it has a little description right here, that would be in there, but you need to go onto the portal to grab that down. So I'm just going to show you, let me bring this over. This is what I did. So this is a good example. So what's up there, this is what's up there. And all I did was I downloaded into Excel so I can sort. So again, here's your categories, what it is, the policy, INI, et cetera, the description. So this is exactly it. Also, if you go through your release notes, you know, the release notes might have this, and it might have a little bit more definition behind it, because sometimes these are a little cryptic. But again, look at your release notes, but then also go into the portal to pull it down. Okay, next.
If PixelPoint is configured to use points by amount spend and your bill is $100, if your customer uses built-up loyalty points to cover $50 and covers the rest of the bill with cash, will they earn points on the $50 or the $100? The customer will have only spent $50.
That goes to that policy that I was just showing you guys. And if you go into the documentation where you can select that allow current transaction points, are they going to get credit for what they did right now, and can they use it up right now, or do they only accumulate credit for what and they can use it at another date? Plus, there's another policy in there too that does answer that. So they won't. So you could set up so they don't get credit for the 50. They only, well, $100 is a hard one to put, but they're not going to get credit for the 100. They'll only get credit for the 50. They'll get credit for the amount that they actually paid for. So they're not getting a double dip, if you will. But there's a policy, and there's a brand new policy that responds to just that. And they go in tandem with those two. And whether it's dollars or whether it's points earned per product. So back to the coupon thing where you buy 5 hamburgers and you get the 6th hamburger free, but up until they walked in the door, they only had 4. We're not going to give them credit for the one that the 2 they ordered today to get 1 off right away. Again, that's all configurable within the policy. Next.
The hide from floor layout check in the table section setup only hides the section from the section window. Is there any way to hide the section in the floor layout without editing it and erasing it manually?
It only hides it. We should be able to inactivate it if you don't want it.
No, the answer is no. All right, basically when you create your floor layout, I mean, you would have to modify the floor layout and the graphic image. The purpose of hide from floor layout is, for example, like an outdoor patio. If it's the middle of January and you got snow outside, you wouldn't be using that patio until later on. So it's basically just to take it away from the control of the users so that they don't stumble into it by accident.
So you can do it seasonally.
Yep.
It's one of those ones, guys, we don't have our inactive button over here. Anyone that you see an in is active, if you can check mark that yes or no, then yeah, you can take it away. If it's not there, then you kind of can't.
Next question is there any way to have more than 20 wide characters on the kitchen chits? Example, print on a second line. Sometimes comments to the kitchen are too long and get cut.
Right. That has to do with the width of the paper. So again, you can go into, all of that is determined by these network printer, sorry. I was going in the wrong spot there. The printer codes, it has to do with these codes, first of all, and there's got to be a built-in margin, if you will, so that it doesn't just print right on the edge. So there is, with all of the different printers, a kind of a unknown built-in margin there. But it's the width of the paper. It's whatever the printer will handle, so you're not going off of it. One of the things that I know some of us have done is tried to change out the fonts. So you're not necessarily wanting to go for 20 characters, but you're knocking down your fonts, and it's just about how much you can squeeze on. But again, that's still a challenge because it's the same challenge that we have with KDS systems. Certain letters eat up more real estate than other letters. I can have 20 characters that are all I's and L's, and I'm going to get a whole lot more on that ticket than if I have 20 B's, D's, and P's. So you got to kind of play with that printer to figure out what it can handle, and then you could go through and do the custom receipts once you understand the coding to try to manipulate it that way.
One thing I should kind of, if I can just kind of add in a little bit as well, when it comes to kitchen prints as well, you can use short forms for that because there's no presentation that has to be really made like as you would on a customer receipt. There are different description fields, one for the remote print and one for the check. And so in a remote print, when you're doing this, you can actually use short forms to cut things down. And if you are using like a kitchen, well, not so much a kitchen command, but like a command or a keyboard type product that you're using to put in some kind of a message that will go to the chef or go to the bartender, you can use that multiple times. So even though we don't accommodate text wrapping, you can use comment multiple times if you have to use more than one line.
Cool. Next.
What do we need to receive? I'm sorry. What do we need to receive information for the on-finished check plugin? It says
what information?
DLL.
What information do they need to have them create it?
What information do we need to receive information? What do we
go
need?
To,
what do we
go
need
to the
to
portal.
receive information? They want information on the finished check plugin.
Go look at the product release notes. There's a whole section in there about that, what they do and what it can do. And I'm looking at the latest and greatest ones, which are dated August 2nd. That talks about the plugins, and it talks about the functionality a little bit more specifically.
Okay, I got to sign off, Donna.
Okay.
See you.
Thank you, Scott.
I guess there was a clarifying question. What I meant is they get a double dip. I think you answered that one already. And then
but we're back to the member thing. Yeah, you can configure it if they get a double dip. So literally, I buy that fifth hamburger today, and I'm going to get it for free today, or I don't get it today, I get it on my next visit. That is configurable. The same with redeeming the monies. If again we're doing it in cash, if I hit that, woohoo, you spent $100, now we're going to give you $25 off your ticket. But if it was done today, do I get to redeem it right away today, or do I have to wait till my next visit?
Next question is, which policy will stop points gained when redeeming points?
Okay, you need to go through the documentation. There's so many of them. The one that I kind of just played with, and again, what I would say is go into policies, and this is I'm pretty sure they're all coded with member, and just sort through. If you don't want to do it, okay, here we go, allow current transaction points. There it is right there. If enabled, allow member points earned on current transaction to be redeemed on close of that transaction. If disabled, points earned can be redeemed on the next member transaction. So there you have it. Allow current transaction points. And again, if you guys go to, pull it down, use your resources at the product release guide -1. The beginning of it, I know it's a bunch of pages. It's 62 pages from what I'm showing. it breaks down all the functionality, and it goes into detail about programming it and what it all affects. But the last page is like, I'm on page 40. What am I on page? That's not 43. If you scroll down towards the bottom pages, then it just lists out every one of the policies. And it takes them down the list alphabetically. So new policy starts on page 54. Okay, next.
When will we have item consolidation on order printer?
Item columns on order printer?
Mm-hmm.
We do. That's what, so in network printer setup, this flag here for each individual printer, consolidate on orders, that's what triggers consolidation. So maybe I'm not understanding what he's looking for. So he wants a ticket to print, and again, it's going to be by printer because I could have a hot printer, a cold printer, an expediting printer. Maybe my expediting printer, I want it to break out by course and by seat numbers, but on my hot printer and my cold printer, I just want it to be consolidated. So my expo printer is going to show, you know, course 1 Caesar salad, or let's do seats actually. Seat 1 Caesar salad, seat 2 Caesar salad, seat 3 soup. And on the hot printer, it's going to show, you know, or the cold printer is going to show 2 Caesar salads if I have consolidated on order set up.
Next question I can answer, actually. It says, you mentioned a new partner portal. I missed the webinar. Is it posted anywhere? And it is posted, actually, on the new, so that you can log in and get it.
You kind of, honey, you want to repeat? I don't know if it was just on my side, but you totally faded out.
Okay. It said, you mentioned the new partner portal. I missed the webinar. Is it posted anywhere? And it's posted on the new partner center. So I just sent a link out to everyone in the chat box that has the link, and you can sign up, and it's right there on the front page.
And this is what it looks like when you log in.
Yep.
So if you go to it, you're going to see over here key documents, because everybody and their brother wants to know about version 12. So right there, I was talking about the whole documentation about version 12, the license, version 12. There's the webinar that Scott did a couple months ago that goes through all the individual things. That was back when it was version 12.1, I believe. Updates, orders, device lists, a lot of other documentation that pertains to this. But you go into the library, and the easiest way to do this is I just put in V12. And it's going to bring me up everything that searched by it. So you can see there's the release notes, there's the installations guide, the product release guide that I've been talking about. Here's the software. It's 2 pieces. There's the install, and there's also a report viewer install because it's considered 2 separate ones. What's new in version 12? You can also drill down into all of your different groupings here. I can go right to the folder that's version 12. And now here's everything that's already out there for version 12 right now. So this is where I'm hammering on you guys, go, 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 go. If I want to look for policies, if I can spell this right, I'm challenged when it comes to policies. That's not right. Hello, policy. Where is it? There's the certified device list.
I think you need to
go on and ask the next question while I search. What, honey?
You need to clear your search. There you go. Now it's showing the last question that I have is printer go to auto redirect printer instantly after physical printer faulty, or do you need to wait for a while? Moreover, is it happening for Is it happening every printing or just for the first time?
That is a really good question, and I honestly don't know the. I know that we have the timeout, and I'm not 100% sure if there's another policy setting somewhere that says give it three timeout chances and then redirect, or if it, like in this case, my audit 5, it's set for 45 seconds. If after 45 seconds of not being fixed, if it's automatically going to redirect to whoever I might have set up, or if there's another policy out there that says, try it 3 times or try it 5 times or whatever, then redirect. Let me research that. I'm going to add that to my list. I'm going to find that one out for you. Redirect. I'll test that out for you and let you know.
And the last comment is from a PAR member that the HO cloud documents were added this morning to the Partner Center. So if people need information on that, they can find them. So it's actually, if you click on the head office folder under PixelPoint technical documents, they're in there.
Oh, we're right in there.
Yep.
Sweet. I did not know that. Thank you. So guys, this
and
is
there's actually more of them. So if you clear your search, I'll go and put in HO Cloud. I put in Head Office Cloud as the search.
No worries.
There you go.
All right. Search only. Oh, let me take off my search only. Let's do Head Office Cloud. Hey guys, Emily is going to do one of the classes. I've got some time set aside for her so she can actually walk you all through this as well. I'm only getting still too, sweetie.
I'm going to go put some more search terms in those. So they'll come
no worries.
For everything.
You know what? Let me
but they're all in that one folder. They're all in that folder under PixelPoint Technical Documents.
All right. There you go. And this is so easy. I want all of these. I'm just going to check mark them. And notice how I have a choice of sending it to myself by email or downloading it as a zip file. So all of that's checked. I'm going to download as a zip. Once my internet kicks back on again, and that is just going to come down to me. It's so simple. Of course, it's 5 meg, so it's going to take a minute. So it's a good thing that the class is over because my internet's probably going to... I'm going to let that do its thing. It's doing its thing on my other screen, guys, just so you know. So we learned something. That's very cool. All right. Any other questions? Any other follow-ups?
There's a couple other questions, but it sounds like they'd be better addressed one-on-one because it's about specific instances. So I'll send them to you, Donna.
All right. That works. That works. All right, you guys, thank you for your time. I'm sorry we ran late, but hey, I love interactive classes. I'm loving all your questions. And we will pick up where we left off on Thursday. All right, everybody. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Donna. Have a great day.
And you too. Bye-bye, everybody.